Ginny,
Yay!
yeah, I've been wanting
Yay.
to talk to you for a while, and now it's happening. So,
Yeah.
and by the
How
way,
magical.
I love your style. You're so unique.
Oh, thank you.
Your whole persona is very unique.
Oh, Jenny's an artist. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yay.
Yeah. So I have a lot of questions I want to ask you.
Okay, cool.
So the first question I wanted to ask is, what brought you to this point? What brought Ginny to the point of this apparent understanding that you appear to have?
Wow. Uh, maybe the whole experience of what it's like to be, um, and resistance, which made it appear real, and then the contraction, which woke me up from the dream. So, um, a crazy life, a crazy life, and a that seemed normal at times, and a freak show sometimes. And there was always questioning since I was little. I was like, "What the hell am I doing here? Like, why? Why am I here? There's got to be a reason. Like, what is this? What is this world? What are these people? What is this? And there's got to be more to this. What is up with this?" And then later on, questions like, what was I before I was born? And I couldn't remember. And it was just empty, nothing, darkness, like in deep sleep. Um, and then just constant clues happening and just things becoming more and more obvious, you could say, like too obvious, because everything is screaming this. Everything's a metaphor of this, like even movies and plays and puppet shows and deep sleep and the dream at night and waking up. And um, yeah, so my dad was an existentialist. He was already digging, trying to figure out the infinite riddle when I was little. And then I took over and I got even deeper and down the rabbit hole than he did. And then um, just was always studying and studying consciousness, very curious, and still do. It's still like just for fun studying consciousness because it's so infinite and magical and can do and be anything. It's fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. So yeah.
It is amazing. I can agree
Yeah.
with you on that.
Hmm.
Some people talk about this shift that seems to take place. What could you say on the shift? Is there a
Um,
shift that takes place or
well, see, that can be tricky because if you hear there's a shift and there's a hardcore seeking happening, which seeking is just resisting what is, and it's just saying this isn't it already, and it's the refusal to accept that this is it in favor for other something else that's objective in the future that doesn't exist. So that's so when there's resistance, hearing that there's a shift, that postpones it even more because it's like, okay, I got to wait for the shift. I got to wait for this shift that people are talking about, which like extends it out into the infinite future that doesn't exist. And you're chasing your tail the whole time because what's being looked for is what's looking. But I will say that I did have a unique, weird ass story. And it did seem like a shift, a dramatic shift. And I'll say that most of the people that I've talked to didn't have a dramatic shift. Some people didn't even notice a shift because there already is no individual, there is no separation. But um, I had an explosive glimpse, which was almost like, I love how scientists are talking about this being, well, first of all, consciousness is fundamental, but it's like wearing a VR headset and forgetting that you're God and you think you're the avatar in the headset. So the glimpse is like taking off the involuntarily because it's just spontaneously happens, but taking off the VR headset and seeing how fucking vast and infinite you are. It's like, holy shit. And it's almost like scary. It's almost like terrifyingly huge, you know? You can't
So would you say that if
even.
somebody appears to take off this VR headset, does that make them special?
No, no way. I mean, you're going to anyway, and like when the body disappears, when the body's disappearing at apparent death or whatever, you take off the headset anyway. It's inevitable. But I'm just saying that that glimpse made it appear like an extreme shift because after that, nothing was the same. It was after you can't unsee that. So it was like seeing yourself as God or the infinite. It's just, and no one was there. No one was there to see it. And it was just, and so then after that, it seemed like I had shifted. It was almost like a perspective shift where I could see that none of this was real. The past had never happened. That this is just immediate. It's timeless. It's infinite. And we're not inside the body. We are way beyond anything that could ever be imagined, appearing as bodies, appearing as faces on screens and chairs and rooms. And so it was very obvious that none of it was real and it was ephemeral. It was that this is God's mind, this is God's imagination. It's all mental. It's all mental concepts and thoughts appearing as bodies, thoughts. I mean, bodies, screens, chairs. And it was, so it was a dramatic shift for Jenny. And um, I couldn't have a fear. I couldn't have, there was no resistance at all. So the thoughts were very quiet. It was almost like I couldn't even tell if I was having thoughts, but then I could tell that the thoughts were still happening. They just weren't being listened to because nothing was being resisted. They're only appear loud and real when there's resistance. So, um, so there was a dramatic one. But then I have a weird story too, because after that, there was 4 months of like a kind of like an ecstasy. So it was more like what people call samadhi or something. And um, then there was a clinging on to the ecstasy. And so when it felt normal, because you can't have an orgasm all the time, there's happy, you can't be happy without sadness. You can't feel, pleasure without pain. Um, there was a resisting not feeling the ecstasy. So then I could see later on when the hardcore seeking that again, which was just the refusal to accept what is in favor for what I thought was, what I wanted, ecstasy. Um, the seeking, the Advaita, the non-duality, all of that started then. So this was a very spontaneous thing that happened here where I didn't know about the term non-duality. I was not trying to be enlightened, and it just spontaneously glimpsed. I got a peephole of, you know, and then so then later on, I had the gradual obviousness that there's no me, and that was like the permanent game over. Um, and so that was cool to see both sides of it. And then I can see how the shift isn't as obvious and not as explosive. So there's all of the above. There's explosive shift and then there's not even noticeable shift, you know?
So I know, having talked to a lot of different people that appear to have what you appear to have, um, there's um, there's a story of following gurus or having a specific guru that they followed. Do you have anything like that?
When I was hardcore seeking, I first fell in love with Sri Ramana, and then after that, Nisargadatta took over. I resonated with him even more because he was so direct and just passionate and abrasive in a way, which I liked that fire even more. Um, yeah, so those were probably the two main ones. Besides, like the old Advaita the more ancient uh, texts that were written, even before them. So I studied all of it.
Was there anything that appeared to be gained from these teachers?
I could see after when Nisargadatta kept saying he's like focus on the sensation of I exist without word or thought. He kept saying that. And that makes it very obvious that I mean, even if you look at the body, it's even logical that you're the awareness prior to the body. You wouldn't be the body. It's like so pointing like that, I can see how when I had the glimpse, that's probably what had happened, which I didn't even know I was doing. I wasn't aware of that. But I was when I look back at it, it was you know, being present with the sensation of I am or I exist, the root I, without word or thought. And that was like when the mirror turned around on itself and it was like, oh my God. And then I wasn't there, you know. I didn't measure it until after. And then I came back, like the mind and the thoughts came back to measure what had happened. So I can see the beauty in all of that, and how it points to you are the pure awareness, and even beyond that, you're the Pada Brahman from which everything's appearing, and it's not separate. So the awareness is not separate from what's appearing to happen. Like the observing is simultaneously creating what's appearing to happen, and as it moves, it's so like over here doesn't exist. It's just immediately what's appearing to happen is what's being, so it's like the seer is the seen, the observer is the observed. It's one. But it's obvious that pointing to that silence that's completely still and completely untouched and untainted by what's appearing to happen is the pure awareness that's seeing this conscious experience of what it's like to be, and it's completely uninvolved with it. It's completely unharmed by what's appearing to happen, and just
Absolutely. I think that a lot of times you can tell somebody based on their tattoos. Can you tell me a little bit about your tattoos?
oh my god.
I think they're beautiful. Tattoos tell a story.
Oh, yay. Yes, my one of my favorite is this Ren that's a watercolor painting. And then some of them are like ghetto drunk. Like I was, let's go get a tattoo with my friends, and then we walk out with these tattoos and I don't know about it until the next morning or whatever. Um, yeah, but these are my favorites. This snake, this is like awakening, and then the eye that I'm obsessed with is everywhere, all over my house. I have them everywhere.
Why are you obsessed with the eye?
It's like the root eye. It's like the eye that can't see itself. It's like the pure awareness eye,
Mm.
a symbol of that.
And
Hmm.
what's that big one that's right up near your shoulder? It's
Oh,
like a
this was a cover up from a a total from a crazy one that my friend gave me um on her front porch with a needle and like a sewing needle and Indian ink. So yeah, this was like the biggest one they could find to cover up that mess.
well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Got beautiful tattoos.
Yay. Thank you. What about you? Do you have tattoos?
No, I'm always afraid to get them because who Amor appears to be from one moment to the next changes
Yeah,
so
you might
everything.
hate it. Yeah.
So right now I might love to get
Hmm.
certain tattoo, and then in a month from now I'm like, why did I get that?
I know.
I don't
That's
want it,
funny.
but then you're stuck with them.
Good idea. Yeah.
So if somebody was to ask you the question, who is Ginny? Who is Ginny? How would you answer that?
Oh man, I don't know. I don't know who Jenny is. I love that you're smoking a cigarette for me though. I used to smoke cigarettes in high school and I remember that satisfaction. Um
That's one of my things that I smoke too much. I smoke way too much. I almost would like to quit. I try to quit, but then I miss it, and then I'm like,
yeah. I loved that
"Ugh."
about Nisargadatta too. He was chain smoking all the time.
Yeah, that's me.
Um heck yeah. Yeah. Who's Jenny? Jenny's spontaneous, wild, and creative, and like a muse or something. Inspires, it seems. Um, let's see. Um, yeah, I love the unknown. The mystery is so sexy to me. It turns me on. Like it's just so exciting. I love going on crazy adventures by myself. I like getting into trouble by myself. Like it's so fun. I love alone time. Um, for example, I booked a spontaneous trip by myself to Guatemala. Um, and I didn't want to make any plans because I wanted to see what my intuition did. I wanted the intuition to navigate. So all I had planned was the first Airbnb, which I had heard that I had to fly to the main capital in Guatemala first. I heard that I needed a shuttle that took hours to get to a boat that took another hour to get to this cool fucking weird location all the way across this giant lake. So that's all I knew. And it was just wild. It was so fucking fun, dude. And the navigation system is perfect. It's so pristine and perfect. Like when you don't resist and you don't there's no one in the way of it, it's just like it does itself beautifully. Everything was just heaven. Like even I got off the airplane, I found the shuttle that took me to the boat. The shuttle took me first to this town and dropped me off in front of this. I was starving. It dropped me right off in front of this organic smoothie shop. And it was like, oh my God, yeah. It's like a holodeck in Star Trek that's fucking perfect. It's like heaven. Um, so I love adventures like that. Just spontaneous, wild, see what happens kind of thing, like for a thrill. Um,
I do too. I love that kind of stuff. Yeah, I had met a woman years ago, that lived in New Jersey. I live in New York, so
oh, cool. I was gonna ask you.
I took a bus to New Jersey,
Uh-huh.
and the adventure of it all was just so exciting to me, you know. And then I hung out with her, and then I ended up meeting somebody else and going to Pennsylvania, and then I had a cousin who flew me out to Florida, and then I flew back to New Jersey, and it's so exciting to me to see these new places and experiencing new things
Yes.
without an agenda, you
I
know.
love it. No plans. Yeah, just let it do itself. It's so fun.
Yes.
Yeah, I used to do that and yeah, just randomly on a weekend, I'd be like, I'm gonna go get in trouble and just like allow the wildness to appear. And I would, drive somewhere and then just have the wildest night of my life, just like it's so cool. I love
It's
it.
easy to get into trouble doing that. I have a passport, and I was thinking about going to India and just winging it,
hmm
but I'm a little bit nervous. I'm like, okay, I end up in India, and then what if something goes wrong?
Oh, how fun.
But I do want to go to India. I want to go to Varanasi. Have you heard of Varanasi?
No.
Oh, it's right on the Ganges River,
Oh, cool. Okay.
and they have like the sadhus sitting everywhere, and
Oh, that would be so fun. India's on my list for sure to check out.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I used to be a follower of Ramana Maharshi,
hmm
and I still would find it fascinating to go to his ashram.
Me too. Yeah. I bet the energy's beautiful.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, I bet. You know,
hmm
so that's definitely on the bucket list.
Yay. How fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
So
Beautiful.
if somebody was to ask you to describe, well, how about this? So I'm gonna say a word, and then you just tell me what comes to mind with this word.
Hmm.
Okay. So death.
Enlightenment.
Elaborate.
um, just the recognition that you never were the avatar. You never had a life. This was just a beautiful dream. Um, and this is eternal. You are eternal. You can never die. You're invincible. You're immortal. Yeah.
Mm, beautiful. Time.
Time um, is a beautiful mental construct so that you, as the infinite that's formless, that doesn't exist in form, can appear to and can appear to play and experience yourself. So, yeah.
Mm. So what about prayer?
Prayer is like praying to yourself, it's like worshiping yourself. And I can see it as like want or wanting something different, wanting something to be different. Um, it's kind of it's objectifying it as well, but that's just all innocent and beautiful.
What about gurus?
I say the guru is not a person, the guru is everything.
Elaborate.
Everything's the guru, everything's everything, everything's God. Everything is God talking to itself.
Mm.
So the question is the answer. The teacher is the student. But yeah, it seems that when it becomes obvious that there's a wanting to share, that this is obvious, and that can help when people are already when people are already resonating on that radio station, when it's already happened, basically they align with the message.
What about Donald Trump?
Yay! I knew you were going to ask that after your post on Facebook. Okay, I'll tell you a funny story that'll kind of sum this up because Jenny's very playful, and I haven't believed that the world was real for a very long time. Like it's been a long time since I took anything seriously. Like I remember one year when it got really dark, and I was like, "There's no fucking way this is real. It would self-destruct, and it would be doomed. Like there's no way." And that like really opened shit up, for the glimpse, it seemed. Okay, so something funny happened recently where my 12-year-old asked, we were all sitting on the sofa. My 12-year-old asked me a political question, which I actually intuited the answer for, and I don't even remember what it was. But my 18-year-old was laughing and he was like, "Why would you ask mom that? There would be a nuclear war happening and she wouldn't even know that it was happening." So that kind of sums it up. I did look into the situation because I keep hearing about it. I scanned it intuitively, and I think it's all a beautiful comedy. It's total comedy, all of it.
Yeah, so that was actually so I had a question I wanted to ask you about the state of the world and the apparent the wars taking place and the death and the children
Hmm.
dying and the women they say that there's women being raped and murdered over in Gaza. What would you say, to somebody who's stressed about this or even the people who are going through this? What could they do to maybe make it a little bit easier for themselves or anything on that topic?
Well, I would be nurturing first because I'm a nurturer. I like to hold people in my lap and take care of them. So I would do that first. I'd be very um compassionate and um, understanding and nurturing first. I wouldn't say it's not happening or this is, you know, but if they're open to that, um, I see it as um, I see so this is all one God's mind. This is the Buddha mind. This is all one mind appearing to function as a whole. So just like the analogy of the human body, where involuntarily inside the body, which there is no inside the body, that's just a concept and idea in the imagination, because where is it? You don't even have a brain. But just use this as an analogy. It's appearing to function as a whole. The heart's pumping, the blood's doing its thing, the cells are doing its thing. And so this whole universe, which is God's mind, is all appearing to function as a whole and involuntarily just as one God's will. So there's no individual will or separate will. It's just all one body appearing to function as a whole. So it balances and compensates. Like it dies and it's born. It's, gets its head blown off and, something else happens to compensate, or one person, or there's pain, for a certain amount of apparent time, and then there's no pain. It's just all balance, all compensating. It's all a balancing act. And it's all playful because first of all, it's not even really happening. Just like you have a daydream or a dream at night, it didn't really happen. And it was all you. You were the only one in the dream. And so it's all one God appearing as peace, appearing as war, appearing as opposites, polar opposites, so that it can experience what it's like to be. This is beingness, and it's the dream of relativity. So it has to have opposite reference points to define it. So you can't have peace without conflict, you know? You wouldn't know what it was like. You wouldn't know. So I think it's all just a beautiful dance. And it couldn't have happened any other way. It's just total perfection. Everything that appears to happen is total perfection.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The last thing I wanted to ask you was about love and hate. If you could describe love and hate, because you seem to embody love. When I look at you, I see love, but when I look at other things, I seem to see hate.
Hmm.
If you could sort of describe love and hate as well.
Yeah, I would say love is non-resistance. It's when everything is just allowed to be what it is, which is just pure love and it's pure presence and beingness. And it's obvious that it's one, it's not separate, and it's just timeless. Um, and then hate, I would see as when there's resistance, there's it appears to be subject object. So me versus the world. And when that happens, when there's resistance, it appears real. And so it creates this illusion of linear time. So when there's just this, it's just a single frame, like a single frame in the projector. Um, that's love. That's just this. It's immediate. It's intimate. And there's nothing else. There's no other. There's no before. There's no after. But when there's resistance, you glue yourself or attach to what's appearing to happen as this is happening to me. And then you turn it into this film strip called the movie of my life. And so in the film strip, there can be this whatever's appearing to happen that you're resisting could have caused resentment or, you know, being offended or taking something personal, which would create that emotion, which is just a thought of hate towards whatever was appearing to happen. And then you hold on to it as this is the past and this really happened to me. And so it's kind of feels heavy. Um, so yeah, I see hate as just like resentment or refusal to accept, what was happening. And thinking that it was separate, and it's not one. This was happening to me, and it was horrible, and I resent it. So yeah, that can be held on to until it's obvious that there is no separation and nothing happened before this. There is no time. Nothing happened before this. So there was no past where I was traumatized. I was never hurt. I was never a victim. And that heals all of that instantly.
You know, what I noticed about a lot of people who are on this supposed path that we appear to be on, there's a history of a lot of trauma and a lot of hurt and pain. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that people who have apparently gone through trauma and pain and hurt and suffering find themselves here?
Find themselves here in the with the non-duality message.
Yes.
Because that resistance, it gets so hardcore. It's kind of like pulling back the slingshot, and the contraction is just squeezing tighter. It's the alarm system that's waking you up from the dream. It's kind of like a nightmare at night when it gets so bad. The contraction is so intense that it wakes you up from the dream. It jolts you up. And then you're like, oh, snap, that was just a dream, you know? So some of this shit can get so crazy, to shake you wake. It's like, up, wake up. And then there's these little clues that come on that's like, I remember when this hardcore seeking started, I said, and I had the thought, what is the fastest way to enlightenment? Show me the fast forward button. And then literally right then, a YouTube video came up that said non-duality. And I was like, what? What's that? So that's pretty cool how that works. So this is just like the direct pointing. And it's like it appears to be like the end of the road, or the end of when you're exhausted, you're ready to die. That's when non-duality shows up.
Yes. Well, so I'm going to end this first part and then we'll be back on for a part two.
Cool.
So we'll be back with a part two.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. That was so fun. Yay.